Hello, everyone. My name is Mandy, and I will be your moderator for today. Welcome to Parents as Partners, a chat about new student transition and well-being. Today's session will be featuring Dr. Gwyneth Lloyd, Director of the Psychological Counseling Center, and Robin Cohen-Laval, Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. So this conversation and Q&A will focus on the ways that family members and the college will work together to support incoming first-year students and transfers starting college here at New Paltz. So before we begin with the Q&A, we're going to have both Gwen and Robin talk a little about themselves, their departments, and their roles on campus. So we'll start off with Robin.
Good evening. So good to connect with you. Dr. Lloyd and my name is Robin Cohen-Laval. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. And Gwen and I are here tonight to talk a little bit about what we do, what we typically do and always do with parents as our partners, and in some ways, what we're doing even more of this year to connect with you and make you feel part of the New Paltz family. We always say that when you, as a parent of a first year or transfer student, are sending your student here, whether they're commuting, living off campus, or living on campus, you're giving us your most prized possession, and you're putting them in our care, and it's our job to make sure that you as partners, as parents, are our partners in supporting them. Many of your students have watched some videos over the course of the summer, and Gwen and I are in those videos if they let you watch them on those links. But I was going to say that my role as Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students is to oversee a cluster of offices that focus on your students' well-being at New Paltz. I told your students this summer, we care about them as a whole student. It's not just coming to classes or doing classes online. It's about being here, and this being their home away from home, connecting to other people, living in the community, taking care of their own physical wellness, their emotional wellness, their social wellness, their academic wellness, looking at careers, perhaps even, alternative mindfulness and spirituality, but the whole person, especially outside of the classroom. And so the departments that report to me are the Psychological Counseling Center, the Student Health Service, the Disability Resource Center, and the Director of Student Conduct, as well as Alcohol and Drug Prevention. So we're here tonight to tell you a little bit about what we do, why we care about partnering with you in collaboration in working with your student, because whether they're 17 or 22, they are adult students who are building their own lives here in college. And sometimes they're very close to you and will communicate with you a lot, and sometimes they want to do it on their own, whether they have all those skills or not. And so we want to talk to you about what's worked in the past in working with parents and what some of our priorities are for this year. There'll be a big portion of the program which is you asking questions. So I'll let Gwen talk for a few minutes, and then we'll get to your questions.
Hello parents, welcome, parents and families and students that may be listening also. I ditto everything that Robin says. I always say to students that there isn't any problem that they have that the college have not even thought to and have a support system in place to help them make that transition and get that needs met. And it is so important with you as partners because oftentimes you are that first person that get that phone call at home in terms of their needs, their concerns. And this conversation tonight is really important because it's a way that we're going to help you bridge that gap. And the more you are aware of the resources that we provide, the easier it will be for you to support them behind the scene. So we want to encourage the questions that you have so that when they call you, when you get that call in the weird hours of the night, they're crying, they're upset, and it's making you anxious, please know that there is a support available. And we want to help you, or you can question them about how to get those supports, resources that's available. Um, Whatever the issue is, whatever the concern is, it's really important that you know that they are not alone. You brought them, you dropped them off, and this time more than any other, it's such a unique time and a unique experience. But please know that they are surrounded. It's a community of support. But support, but also critical to that support, of getting that support, is helping them build that confidence and that ability to seek help. That's how it works. There are times that we will reach out to them, but we won't know everything and everything that they need. Most importantly is helping them to be partners. So if you know a lot of things, they know things, we know things, together those pieces, we can help them be successful here at Newport. Ultimately, but success is not only academic. As Robin said, it's the whole person. We're seeking to put and build a whole person. So you won't recognize them when they come home because they have transformed into real emerging adults.
I just want to add that if we were meeting you at summer orientation, we would be telling you that this is a transition for you as well. Whenever a family member makes a change, whether they're living at home or living at a college, the whole family changes a little bit. And so for you as parents, a lot of times you speak about your students, but we know that in speaking to parents a lot lately over the phone in the last few weeks, Gwen and I know that there are a lot of issues you as parents are feeling as well. And so our parent programs are really geared towards you knowing that we care about the families of students as well.
Awesome. So before we begin, I would say, Gwen, if you want to move up a little bit closer right here. First,
Use a little louder.
Okay.
Here.
okay.
While we're doing this, please know that there's no question that's a dumb question. Every question, I bet you the question that comes to mind, there are many other parents that are listening that have the same questions. So we encourage your questions. Please don't hesitate.
We're also, as you can see, and so I'm trying to use my outside voice, modeling social distancing and showing that, we're trying to make this a casual evening as if we're sitting in a living room talking to one another. So if we speak loudly, it's because we want the camera to pick up our voices.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like we
Yeah. So while we wait on some questions, would you both be able to talk about first, like what inspired you to be in the role that you are today?
Oh, I received 2 of my degrees from New Paltz. I'm an alum for my bachelor's and master's here. And so I've been part of the New Paltz family for many years. And we talk about giving back. This is a place that many people work here because they love being part of a collaborative group. And so what motivates me are the students and helping them make their mark and become the most that they can be. And my career has been in career counseling, in alcohol prevention, in general counseling. I've done a lot of work in grant writing. So I've had a wide variety of experiences that give me a chance to work with students in different ways. And in this current role, it's about making sure the whole student doesn't feel like they're falling through the cracks. If they have issues, I want them to feel they have a place to come and someone to speak to about those issues, and also to ensure their health and safety, which is a very big concern right now for parents. And we have a multifaceted plan in place. I think we've said that there are over 10,000 words in the COVID-19 Q&A section on our main website, because we have many teams planning for your students to come back to assure their health and safety. So that's kind of been my trajectory, and now it's just very exciting to work with students and supervise the people who are working with them.
Wow, that's a good question. I guess one of my practice philosophies here is I say to people that I love what I do what I love, and I do it with love. And that for me speaks to the deep passion that I have for this work. I know when we do this in person, the parents, they always wonder, how long have you been here? And I tell them, it's like, believe it or not, 30 plus years. And what kept me here is really the here and now of being able to help students cross that bridge as they make that journey in their development. But even more specifically, is the kind of relationship that transcends time with the students and watching students grow and become later on as emerging adults to being colleagues. This is what motivates me and gives me a sense of hope. So when I'm working with students that are in deep pain, feeling that you know life is not worth living, that they want to leave school, I feel like I can carry that sense of hope for them. Even when they're feeling hopeless, I'm able to carry that sense of hope because my experience watching many students as themselves kind of I use that hopefully to give them that sense of that things do change, that the pain and the struggles that they have it is just for now. It does not mean for life. And then being able to see them cross that bridge and 4 years later watching them cross that stage, knowing what they went through to get there, that's gratification. So it's again continuing to understand the whole person, supporting them through that transition, being with them, standing by them. So for me, it's just the passion, and that's just my calling and what I do. And I have a great staff that shares that same passion, and that allows us to get the students, to that next level.
Thank you. All right. Ready for some questions? So, our first one is, how many students will be in the residence halls this semester?
Well, right now, I think that we have about 2,300 students. Some are on a wait list waiting, in case any spaces open up. But we have, I believe, 14 residence halls and double occupancy rooms. We're not doing any triples this year, so students will only have one roommate in their room or suite. So we're not maximizing our capacity. We could be renting many more beds, but we're choosing to have about 2,300 students on campus.
Are there any plans for a parent and family weekend? And how will this be possible?
Well, I'm guessing here, but I believe that at least virtually now, the date has been set. Is it the end of September, beginning, or in October? And I think it's to be announced. I know our alumni weekend has become virtual for this year. Our parent weekend, by the way, has always been primarily a one-day event, a Saturday visitation event. So whether some of those visits can happen in October, everything, as you know, in the world right now, is our flexibility to pivot. And week by week, there are new decisions about what is the best and most helpful and a proactive approach. So I don't think a decision is going to be made about that till probably September, but just stay tuned and you can check that out on the student engagement website.
Are students being tested for COVID on campus, or are they required to do so before coming? Results, keep in mind, take 7 to 10 days.
Okay, well, that's a good question. There won't be mandatory testing at this point of each student. However, the director of the Student Health Service will assess students who report symptoms, and where there needs to be testing, we will be testing on campus. And they will follow the Ulster County Public Health guidelines for testing. What we are asking, however, is that people quarantine with their students for 7 days before they come to New Paltz. Preferably 14 days, but 7 days meets the requirement. And some parents have been asking me, does that mean isolation and they can't leave their bedroom? And no, it just means doing their normal things, but avoiding unessential shopping trips or social events outside the home, restaurants and other things where we expose them to people they don't know. So as long as you're doing what you've been doing and you stay close to home, the goal is for the student to have had that consistent quarantine experience at home so that everybody can come here well and healthy. And our theme for the fall is I, we, not I, we, not me. So it's about we as a group, we as a community care about each other, we care about ourselves, rather than just thinking, well, it's just for me, I'll go and hang out with people. So we encourage you to have your student not have uh, interactions with their friends that are closer, that don't guarantee social distancing, unless you could assure that that's going to happen with masks and social distancing. We encourage them to quarantine.
What types of orientation activities will be available on campus? Um, Clearly, as they're coming to campus, they're going to be in their residence halls. So, will there be activities provided?
Well, for those students living on campus, and not all of your students are living on campus, some may be commuting from home or be living off campus, but for all students, we will have socially distanced activities in smaller groups rather than having an event with 1,000 people, primarily by their housing cluster of who they're living near. And there'll be some face-to-face events and many virtual events. But they have already met a few dozen, I believe, virtual orientation leaders who will continue to be their connection through social media, through programmed events, through connection, and we are really, I have to say, even before this year, we are really excellent at helping students connect with one another. So to allay your fears about them being isolated in their room, we will be doing events within their hall where they can do events with people outside of their hall, and there'll be a big variety of events for them to participate in.
And I would say, speaking to the parents, I think it's really important that those are calls that you will get. I'm bored, I have nothing to do. And that's the importance of hearing this, that there is a lot of things that will be happening for the students. So it's really important that you don't take that ownership, but you redirect them to have you spoken to your resident assistant? Have you spoken to your resident director? I am sure that there are things for you to do. What are some of the things that you have looked at into doing? So rather than try to find the answer for them, have more kind of question. Have say, okay, and just be a good listener. If you were in this group, if we're doing this live and you were on campus, we talk about good listening skills. That you don't have to have the answers for them. Just be a good listener as a parent. Just say, okay. Well, sweetie, what are you thinking of doing? Who have you spoken to? So kind of nudging them and being able to say, when we had this talk back in July, I remember that they said that there would be activities for you to do. Have you considered any of those activities? I know they have things for you to do. So why don't you do that, and then why don't we talk about it tomorrow? So don't do the work for them. Encourage them to do the work, themselves. So I think that's really, really important because you will be hearing a lot about that. From the counseling center's perspective, we expect to be running some transition groups. We call it homesickness. And probably more than any time, this time it will really feel more concentrated this time. So generally, homesickness don't kick in and set in not until around almost like a month into classes when they have passed the excitement stage. So we're hoping again to have some supportive virtual groups for them. So again, what I wanted to keep hearing is that there are resources and there are support. And your job is to be a good listener to them, but redirecting them to the resources. Rather than you calling us and say, I got a call from my student and there's nothing to do, you know, let them do the calling, move them towards that action. Because remember, as emerging adults, this is the time that they're going to begin to assume responsibility for their life and their well-being. So it's on them. There's a saying that if they're bored, that's because they're bored. You know, we used to say that. That if you're that bored, that's because you're a boring person. And that may seem hard, but the fun part here is that there are lots of activities to do. We also recognize that there are students that it is difficult for them in terms of their social skills to feel comfortable stepping out. And this particular environment that we're in makes it even more challenging. The comforting part is that so much of it is virtual. So it's about engagement, and the relationships that they're able to build through the virtual connection will transcend time and will help them again cross that transition bridge into the next semester and help them survive.
Awesome. Thank you. So you had already mentioned that there's going to be events and programs on campus available for students, but switching into more of the atmosphere of utilizing the bathrooms throughout campus, how many students are going to be able to use a bathroom at a time?
I know that, so, so I know that, I want to start by saying that our facilities management department has a major priority and has extended the staff that will be continually cleaning bathrooms. Whereas typically they might clean the bathroom every morning or every evening, they'll be rotating through to regularly, and I've seen it on campus already this summer, that the custodial staff is cleaning, cleaning, cleaning constantly. That's number one. Number two, depending on whether a student is in a corridor style hall or a hybrid hall or a suite style hall, in a suite style hall, they're going to share a bathroom with perhaps 3, 5, or 7 other people, but they would be the only people using that bathroom. And so they will get information from Res Life about how to clean up when you walk in and leave the bathroom, because I think again it's all about, we, not me, and everybody is going to do as they've been doing any place they go, clean, use, clean behind you. But there will be people cleaning, and there are, stations on campus for washing, but students are encouraged, and there's a whole list that went out, a fabulous list that just went out from Residence Life about what to pack. And this year we've been pretty specific about, in addition to masks, what type of sanitizers, what types of soap, so that students are prepared to bring their own materials and when they go to the bathroom, use their soap, wrap it up, and take it back to their room. So it really varies about which building they're in, and then if they're in a classroom building, those buildings will be cleaned regularly as well, if they're taking classes in person.
So if we're thinking about the items that students need to pack to bring to campus, should students be bringing cooking utensils, pans, etc.? Will the kitchens be open in those residence halls?
So for the kitchen and laundry use, there will be scheduled times so that we can minimize and practice social distancing, where you'll schedule a time so we don't have everybody using the kitchen at the same time. I think it's not a bad idea for them to do that. However, any student living on campus gets a full meal plan, and they will have places where they're going to be getting their food, eating outdoor, as was covered in an event a couple of days ago. We'll have big tents. We're going to have outside seating. They can bring things, grab and go back to their residence hall or different locations on campus. So they're not cooking for themselves. I hope you understand that when a student is paying for a meal plan, there's enough food there for all their meals and snacks and picking up things to grab and go. So it's important that, somebody wants to bring a little bit of some kitchen utensils, those are not going to be provided or shared. They never have been. That's not a change. They've never been, provided or shared.
Will the health center on campus be giving influenza vaccinations, or do students need to leave campus to get one?
We're being instructed that we need to be louder, so just, you'll see us creeping up on you here. I believe we do flu shots. I can't
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
we
they
will
do.
do flu shots. Um, but again, I always say when it comes to health, your student is an individual. You have your family physician. If your student has, if they're already giving out flu shots before they come to New Paltz and they have a history of asthma or other illnesses where they need the flu shot early, by all means, getting a flu shot, getting it out of the way, why not get that at home? But if they haven't gotten a flu shot, those are administered by our student health service. And our student health service will be doing telehealth, just as your family physician is doing now, but they will also see students in person, only by, like, they'll call, make an appointment, come in a specific door, which is secured for them. So they're going to have the same services they have right now. If any of you have seen your family physician this summer for any reason, that is how our student health service and our counseling center function, in order to have health protections for your students.
And I know that you had mentioned before again that there's tons of opportunities for students on a virtual platform for when they arrive, but there is still some concern regarding socialization with others. Is there going to be any opportunities for students to have to not feel isolated but in a non virtual platform?
So absolutely. Again, I believe from listening to a presentation by the Director of Residence Life this week, it'll be focused on small group social distanced activities. There are a lot of things we can do with 10 to 25 people who stay 6 feet apart that, which isn't really much different than the kind of programming the resident assistants have done in the past. I have to also say that research shows that students connect more through small events. The idea that people go to a concert where there are 1,000 people is actually a more isolating experience than having a lot of little programs that they can choose from and to socialize in small groups and make really, more heartfelt, uh, sincere connections than superficial connections. I will give you an example of another time. So when we had Hurricane Irene, I think it was, and we lost all of the power, as New York did, uh, for a day or a couple of days. We brought food into the residence halls. The students came down to the lounge in different lounges in different small groups. Their cell phones didn't work, so they couldn't text their parents and bother them at home. And they just felt very unconnected because they didn't have computers and they couldn't get lost in the television, etc. We did a post survey after that hurricane happened to ask them what their experience was during the hurricane. They said that gathering in small groups with people in their building made them meet people they never would have spoken to and never would have known. Because in our society right now, this is how I imitate people walking around campus. They're usually looking at their phone, they're not talking to each other. So I have to say that people are hungrier now for that contact, and I'm kind of excited that they're going to make more genuine friendships because they have had these months to appreciate the value of interaction. And so that's my hope, is that they're going to benefit from the small group activities.
I think just to add to what Robin is saying, typically one of the stories that I hear from students is that no one is, under normal circumstances, they would say, well, no one is asking me to walk to dinner. No one, no one is inviting me any place. And I encourage students, well, you know, what have you done? So I try to get students to move not from waiting for someone to invite them, but invite themselves. Stick their head out of their room and say, "Hey, are you all walking to dinner? Can I walk with you? Can we exchange numbers?" Those kind of things. So again, you'll have resident assistants, in the suite or the corridor or in the hall, assisting them. But again, I want to say part of the onus is that student being able to reach out. Now it's really hard because they may feel very uncomfortable. They feel, well, I don't. There's some people that are very outgoing that will be the life of the group, and there'll be some people that are a lot more reserved, and that's okay. It's not good or bad, but each have to recognize that if I'm going to be part of this community, I have to take a risk. And taking that risk, there are more people waiting to say, hey, yeah, no one asked me to. Okay, yeah, let's walk together. Oh, yes, let's walk to class together. Those kind of things. I also say to students that, for those that will have classes that they'll be meeting in the class, there are about maybe on an average 20 to 30 something students in an average class. And I tell students, do the math. You have classes twice, a minimum of twice a week, and you have 4 classes. You have access to almost over 200 people in the course of a week for you to connect to in your class. Making those connections, starting small conversations. So those are the kind of things that they have to own also in making those connection, building those kind of connection, which will decrease the degree to which they feel isolated. So yes, this is a time it's probably going to be very easy to feel isolated. So it's going to be mean that they will have to work even harder at being connected. And that's how you as parents behind the scene can help that student to feel connected.
So, Gwen, you were talking about how students have this feeling of, they might have this feeling of isolation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, will students be concerned about not being able to go home when they want to? Is that something that they'll be able to freely go in and out? Are there some restrictions with that? And how do you think that will impact either a heightened level of anxiety or isolation?
I will answer part of it, and I probably will defer some to Robin. So I'll answer from the perspective of developing the social relationships. The decision to go away to college first, I always say to say, what motivated you to make that choice to be away, to go away into college? Um, and people have different reasons why they wanted to be away. Some just wanted to get away from their family. Some have really thought through and wanted to take the opportunity to grow, to find themselves, many different reasons. So what that means is that if you have a student that wants to come home every weekend, you find that almost every weekend they're coming home. Then you have to say, whoa, what's happening here? Let's set some limits. Maybe you want to think about, maybe you can come home once a month, not every weekend, because I always say when students are coming home from the time that their class ends on a Wednesday night or a Thursday and they come back on a Sunday, weekends tend to be the opportunity that students can connect with their peers. And if they're leaving campus and going home on weekends, when they come back on Sunday, they're getting really refocused again into their academics. So they don't have time to build a foundational relationship. So I would say it is really important to encourage your students to stay at home. And I say again, as parents, it becomes an executive decision, of saying, hey, you wanted to go into college. The whole idea was for you to have that experience. Coming home every night or every weekend, that's not healthy. I need you to stay on campus so you can maximize your experience. So I think that you have to discourage that from coming home every week. You may have a student who also may be feeling so anxious, and it is the first 2 weeks of class, they're not feeling that they can stay. This is overwhelming for them, and those are typical kind of problems or experiences that we encounter with students. Um, I kind of say rather than talk about to your student about let's finish off the semester, I think you want to rethink and say let's get through this week. So you're going to break it down and think do it in compartments. Let's get through this week. Let's get through next week. And, let's get, so every week you kind of take it 1 week at a time, not a semester at a time, because it's overwhelming to think of a semester at a time. But if we could just see, let's just see how you're doing by the midpoint of the semester. And then let's make the decision. So kind of taking it, by pieces. So don't talk about the whole semester or the whole year as much as let's get through this week. Let's just see how you feel this week. So I think those are the kind of conversations. And I also say to parents, well, should I take them home and we should just leave campus? I also say to parents, well, you know what's in your pocketbook, so to speak. And, we have, according to the student accounts, there's certain times on the schedule where you'll be able to be eligible for reimbursement at a certain percentage. Now, you as parents, you need to look at that schedule, and then you need to make a decision based on what your student is saying to you, their capacity, and your ability to take a certain amount of loss, financial loss. So there are things that you have to balance. So I think those are times you can call us, and we find that once we can reach out to the students and we can connect, we have been able to keep students, and students can be able to get past through that. But it becomes so overwhelming that escape tends to be, I just want to get out of here and I'll be fine. So I think that's a very important piece.
I want to express to you, if you have older children who went away to college, if this is not your first, you know that when you went to college, you lived through your weeks, you had your ups and downs, and maybe you even updated your parents occasionally and said, oh, the week started out, it was crummy, I didn't think anyone liked me, but then they voted me into the Students Association. I thought my friends weren't waiting for me, but I was waiting in the wrong spot. I wound up having a great week. You lived your life, you reported on it later. The younger generation of students text you every time they feel a negative feeling, and they want it fixed right then. And that's what Gwen was talking about. The transition for you is tolerating their ups and downs and telling them, hang in there this week. So I just wanted to say that. But I have to say, we've structured this fall semester differently for a reason. We have compressed the semester. Whereas there would have been a long weekend for Labor Day, there is none. We are working Labor Day. Where there would have been a 4-day fall break weekend with a Wednesday class off, a 5-day attached, there's no fall break. Our goal for health and safety reasons is to finish before Thanksgiving and to have your student finish the semester in fewer months. So this year, the priority is ideally no student who lives outside of Ulster County, which is a very low risk area, should really be going home until Thanksgiving. Ideally, that's the situation. If you want to call us and consult us about a specific situation your student has, then you can do so. But the goal is for students, us, all of we, not me, to stay safe, is to come to campus and to stay on campus. And we are going, and this is something we've dealt with. We don't let first year students have cars in any particular year in the past because the first year students, we didn't want them going home. So it's not new that we didn't want them going home. The reason may have changed a little bit this year, but I want to assure you that the best thing you can do is to say, you're going away for a few months, you're going to be home by Thanksgiving, and make it okay for them.
And don't try to do the opposite by visiting them every weekend either. That is not helping either. So it's really important that they have to do that difficult work of adjusting. And I think, as Robin said, if this is your first, it will feel very foreign and very different. If it's your second, your third plus, you may be like, been there, done that. But again, each child, each student is so different. You may think you've mastered the last three, and this one is like none other. And it may very well be like none other because this is a time like none other. So I think it's really important is to let them to tolerate the discomfort as well as you to work on tolerating their discomfort. You can't rescue them. That is an opportunity for them to work on how do I rescue myself? How do I take care of myself? Again, they are not alone. You know that, and you know that there's a lot of support to help them get through that piece.
So I think these next couple of questions is really pertaining to like the time of COVID. So
Yes.
just keep that in mind with the lens. Um, you made the comment of, coaching the students into staying on campus because it's going to be that short period of time. Can families even if it was once, come and visit their student and bring them into like town to grab a bite to eat or spend time with them?
Yeah, ideally, as people are practicing in their own lives, if they're making the right decisions, it's about low risk and more essential issues. But, as long as there's social distancing, and if you go to get food and there's an outdoor area to eat, the thing is that students can't have guests in the building. we want to sort of secure and ensure as much healthfulness in the building as possible, that nothing comes in. So that, little brothers and sisters can't come and visit for overnight. Parents may bring something to the student, they'll give it to them outside the building, they'll bring it to their own room. We even said that. We said when you're dropping things off in the next few weeks, and then when you have the student moving in, let the student break it up in a way the student will be able to carry it and unpack it. But by all means, it doesn't mean that a family member is dropping them off somewhere and they can't see them. It's just that we don't want students going to other areas. And it's really, really important to understand that if family members visit, they have to follow all of the same rules that our students and our faculty and staff are taking a pledge that we are going to wear masks, wash our hands very often, socially distance at least 6 feet, etc.
How safe is it for students to be receiving packages on campus if it's delivered from a specific site?
That's a good question. I really haven't spoken to the mailroom yet, but I get packages from Amazon. I wipe them down. I have my routine, and I let them sit a while. So I think probably mail will, the mail has still gone on, and I think that it might be good for you to send your student with a shopping bag. So if they pick up their packages at the mailroom, because they'll have it on their phone, students don't have to go to their mailbox to get, they get on their phone, it's kind of a your package has been delivered notice. They go to the mailroom, they show that this is themselves, and then I would give them a big shopping bag so they could put that package in there, and then they can go back to their room and wipe it down before they open it up. And then there's recycling in their building, or recycling if they wipe it down at the mailroom, they can recycle their packages right there, I think.
I think the important thing is the back to the we and the community that, be mindful of cleaning up after themselves. Remember, you're not with them. So I have a sign in my office that says, your mama don't live here, your papa don't live here, clean up after yourself. So I think they need to start practicing very early already before they come the importance of cleaning up after themselves. Because the issue will be, well, I clean my stuff, my roommate doesn't clean, again, creating a sense of community and a sense of each of us having a responsibility is a sense of mindfulness about, okay, I have these wipes. When I wipe, I want to make sure that I put it in the garbage. Newport is very big on recycle. We're very big about those kind of pieces.
In a typical year, we would spend a lot of time telling you some students have done their laundry throughout high school, some students you've always done their laundry. And so in the same way, to add to the list of things that you want to start training them to do, the next month, your homework as our partner is to teach them how to do laundry and teach them how to clean packages, open and dispose of things in packages.
And clean up after yourself in the bathroom. So maybe some of you have a one room and everybody cleans up. Maybe some of you have a mansion and maybe someone comes and clean up. Again, part of the homework is start practicing clean up after yourself, and so that you will be ready when you come. Early orientation.
Just want to make a couple of announcements before we go into the next couple of questions. So keep in mind, we might not be able to get through all of the questions today, but a lot of the questions that you all are wonderfully putting together, they're going to be posted on the FAQs on our website. Also, anything that has been asked regarding students' bills or student accounts, there's actually a session tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. hosted by Student Accounts, so feel free to join us then and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. Okay. So one of the questions being asked is, they recognize that the SUNY sports had been canceled for the fall. Will club sports be canceled?
That's under the student association, and I think student association clubs and all of that is still being determined. I think that's a college and a student association decision. Again, nationally, most contact sports are postponed. So I think it depends. I mean, there are some very interesting, even within club sports, there are some virtual club sports. So those can continue, but it has to do with ensuring safety, and we have a lot of clubs that don't fall under the athletic conference, but it's going to depend on the risks involved in those clubs.
So leading into the next question, will the gym be open this semester, and what will be offered?
My understanding is that there will be certain hours for the gym with closed hours periodically. So it'll be limiting numbers of people in there. I mean, I don't know what's happening because my gym off campus was supposed to open and now it's postponed that it's opening. So I think that's also to be to be continued. But if the gym opens, there part of the structure of the proposal is cleaning times where they're coming in every 2 hours and cleaning and shutting for that period. There'll be super cleaning hours. Again, as I say, week by week, I think you'll stay informed by checking our FAQs, and those will be updated. So I don't want to make any promises here today because today is, July 23rd and July 30th or August 7th. It could be great news, and it could be maybe we have to pull back a little and wait.
Thinking about residence halls, and obviously when we're leaving the building, we're going to be wearing masks. But if we're in the hallway, for example, will students need the mask once they leave their room, essentially, like going to the bathroom and showering, etc.?
I love Mandy's asking me these questions because she works in residence life and she knows the answers, but she's not in my chair. So basically, students will have to socially distance in their room or in their suite from other people by 6 feet and don't have to wear masks. But hallways are considered public areas. And so inside hallways, inside lounges, even in the residence hall, students will wear masks to go to the bathroom and to transverse from one place to another. And off camp, outside of the residence hall, if they cannot socially distance 6 feet from a stranger. So, they could walk out of the building with their roommate, have their masks on and make sure they're far enough from people. But if they're walking alone, they can stay separate from other people. But yes, they have to be in their own room or suite room, and in those rooms, social distancing would be allowed without a mask.
Is there a licensed psychiatrist on campus?
Yes, indeed.
She needs to speak a lot louder.
Yes, we do have a licensed psychiatrist, on campus, and I'm glad that question is there because I really want to make sure that parents and students, if you're listening, understand that. We at the counseling center, we are a full service counseling center, and what that means, we provide a range of services with a combination of time limited psychotherapy, group therapy, crisis counseling, information and referral services. We are a staff of 6, there's 6 of us on staff with a combination of licensed clinical social workers, licensed mental health workers, licensed psychologists, licensed psychiatrists. The most important thing that I want to tell you about our psychiatrists is that it's very limited. We have a consultant psychiatrist. So what I say to students, if you are on psychotropic medication, meaning medication for mental health purposes, if your prescribing physician is willing to continue prescribing your medication for you, that is fine. If they're not willing to continue providing that medication for whatever the reason, once you get to campus, you can certainly contact us and that we will work with you. In terms of how that works, that access to our psychiatrist is limited to students that are actively engaged in therapy with us. And that's really important because we believe that it's very important that to be in therapy and also medication as an adjunct. Otherwise, we see the line will be long, very long outside. Everybody wants medication, nobody wants therapy. So that's really important. In terms of the therapy piece, what I have said to parents is that if you If you are in therapy again and your therapist is encouraging you to continue, once you get to campus and you settle, give us a call, and then we can, again, work with you on getting you connected with us. You may hear that, oh, we only do 8 sessions. What we say is that we provide short-term time limited psychotherapy, but for first year students, in recognition that this is a transition for them, we're more flexible with first year students. So therefore, we may provide more than the 8 sessions as clinically indicated. Most importantly, no fee, there's no insurance, no paperwork involved, there's no exchange, no monetary, no co-payment. It is just part of the services that the college provides. And last but most important for students, students, and parents, unlike being in high school and being in college, we have a very strict policy of confidentiality. So students, if you're listening, you can certainly access us, and even if your parents were to call and they want to know did you follow through with your appointment as they directed you to, parents, please know that we would not be able to tell you yes or no whether or not your student is being seen for therapy due to confidentiality. But if you want it, we encourage you to have a conversation with your student, and then if they sign a release of information, then we can have a conversation with you. Of course, the exception to that is when that there are certainly risk factors involved for self-harm or harm to others, then that supersedes confidentiality. So kind of in a nutshell, that's really, really important, and I encourage you to contact me for more detailed information for your particular circumstances.
So we only have a couple of minutes due to time. So before we wrap up, is there any piece of advice that you would like to share for the parent and family members or even for incoming students?
I do want to say that every student, you must have received information, needs a physician's health report completed. And it's really important, even if they're commuting to campus, if they're not feeling well when they're on campus, our student health service can't see them unless we have their medical history. If they're living on campus, they could be deregistered after 30 days of the semester if that is not on file. So this is the time of year in July and August where family members make sure their students' health history, including some sign-offs for awareness about meningitis and other vaccines, are completed. So the Student Health Service, I'm here tonight representing that that's important. If your student also has received accommodations in prior schools and in high school, for disability, we have over 700 students registered with our Disability Resource Center. A lot of times students go to college, and Gwen can reinforce this, that they'll think, I'm going to college now, I'll do it on my own, I don't want to be labeled, I don't want to identify myself. But then they get into their classes and they need extended testing time, they need support services, they haven't worked their schedule out to really assist them. They're going to miss out on social adjustment types of workshops. So I encourage you, if your student has already received these services in the past, to go to mynewpaltz.edu/DRC, and what will pop up first at the Disability Resource Center is orientation. Be aware for first year and transfer students, click here. And you'll look at the menu as ways that you can register with the center. A student, once they get here, may decide, I don't need the services, but then they will have done everything in terms of documentation paperwork, which is very, hard to get once a student is here and the family is home. To get it all in line so that the center knows whether it's a physical disability, neurological, any kind of psychological disability, it's really good to register with the center. It's completely confidential, and they will reach out to your student about the services available.
I think just a takeoff from one of the things that Robin said, parallel to the health, is it's also the time that students, it's not unusual when students get to college for the first time, they also want to discontinue the medication. Maybe you have been, as parents, have been making sure they take their medication on schedule every day. They get to college, they said, oh, I don't have to take it, I don't need it. Well, you're going to be making many decisions in life and through your college experience. And I'd probably say some of them will be very good decisions, some of them may not be very good decisions. I would probably say the decision to discontinue your medication would be considered not a very good decision. Um, I think it's making that transition more than anything else. It is very important if you have been stabilized on your medication to continue your medication regimen. I understand you may want to taper off your medication. It is not a good time, your first semester in college. I think it is something that you can consider. Survive the first semester first, and then after that, towards the spring, maybe January, you could have conversations with your prescribing therapist. So I would say whatever you do, and if you haven't been practicing taking it independently, start practicing now without your parents reminding you. That's really important. The second thing I want to say to that is really important is that we're available 24/7. And what that means after we're available during the evenings after 5 and on weekends for mental health emergencies, mental health crises that are occurring after 5 and on weekends. We are accessible. There's a system in place for you to reach us and that you can do that. Parents, you can certainly call us. We can have conversation, and that's why I love when you parents as partners, because I love when you call and having conversations with you about your concern, because you are that person that is getting that call from your student at that odd hour at night and you're feeling helpless. It's important to listen to them. You can certainly call us. We will certainly coach you and provide supportive ways that you can get your students to refer them for them to come to the counseling center. But again, remember, we can't tell you yes or no whether that they're coming. And students, again, have access to calling us directly, again, after 5 or on weekends for emergencies. They call us, we're on the phone with them, and we do a lot of the work and take care of them. So again, we're available 24/7 for mental health, crises.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Just a couple of announcements before we conclude. If you would like to attend more summer programs during orientation, please visit our website at www.newpaltz.edu/orientation, or you can follow us at SUNY New Paltz, at NP Orientation, and at NP Transfer. We will be doing another Facebook Live session soon to answer all of the questions that we were not able to answer tonight. Thank you so much and have a great evening.